Sorry at NBA for smacking the ref ass after getting ejected. I see other refs took offense to it. My apologies.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball. One day down in this remaining week and a bit of the NBA season, 8 days left to go before the playoffs begin. So we're going to talk about all the action that went down on Tuesday. Well, not all of it, because some of it's inconsequential for us in fantasy. And we're going to also preview the 6-game slate for Wednesday for DFS. So, Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. This is definitely the shit show time of the season. You should absolutely 100% not be playing any fantasy at this point of the year. You should 100% still be downloading this podcast. And you know what? Still listening to it, because maybe I can provide some stuff that's not fantasy related as well. I think I can. But your league should absolutely 100% not be going. It is just an absolute disaster of a time in the NBA outside of about 7 teams who are actually fielding correct lineups and rotations. We will start with the monstrous line of the night. And of course, it goes to Jim Harden of the Houston Rockets, 38, 10, and 9 with 5 triples, 1 steal, 1 block, 12 of 18 from the field for Jimmy, and 9 of 10 from the free throw line. The number one player in fantasy, obviously the second half of the season, he was eclipsed by Anthony Davis, but he is overall the number one guy, averaging almost 31 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 9 assists, with 3.7 triples, almost 2 steals, and 0.7 blocks. He is a positive contributor in all of those categories, apart from rebounds, where he's at 5.5. But over the last 2 months, he's a positive in that category as well. 45% from the field, 86% from the free throw line. His free throws are excellent on huge volume, and they are his 4th strongest category. That's how good this guy is for fantasy basketball, shooting 37% from 3 as well. Not very much that I can say about Jim, although over these last 8 days, I would expect hopefully some lower minutes and some rest days built in for Harden again. One of the reasons why you do not play fantasy at this point in the year, I know I belabor this point, but this is exactly why. But a huge game from Harden today, and just give him the MVP. It's over. The waiver wire line of the night goes to Jose Calderon of the Cleveland Cavaliers. 19, 4 and 4 for Jose. 3 triples, 2 steals, and a block. He was 7 of 11 from the field and hit both of his free throws. He started for an injured George Hill, and this was by far the best performance of his season. In contrast, he started against the Mavericks 2 days ago and had 8 points with 2 assists. So I don't think we need to be looking at this from a realistic, reproductive standpoint. But curiously enough, in the last 5 games, Calderon has shot at least 50% or better from the field, which is massive for a point guard. He's always been a very good shooter. He's doing very little else of anything. Maybe adding some threes. And as soon as George Hill returns, then Calderon might not even be in the rotation for this team. But an interesting DFS flyer, GPP type of guy. Maybe you need some points, threes in 16 or 18 team leagues, but that's realistically about it. He is a top 170 player over the last 2 weeks, getting minutes with Hill sideline, with Korver out, with multitudes of different things happening with Cleveland. But once everyone's healthy, he is not likely to be an every night rotation player. Just an oddity at this time of the year. We're going to see some odd ones. And I tweeted this out yesterday asking who people thought would be the most random player to get a monstrous line of the night. My selection was Kem Birch, but there are going to be some... Alec Peters will be an interesting one in Phoenix. There's going to be some weird ones. Someone mentioned Shaq Harrison, which I like. Someone mentioned Luke Cornett of the Knicks. There's going to be an absolute random-ass guy, get a monstrous line of the night, or get something weird this season. Just wait and see until these last couple of days of the year. The young gun of the night, Justin Jackson of the Sacramento Kings. 19, 8 and 4 for Justin. 3 triples, a steal, a block, 7 of 11 from the field, and he hit both of his free throws. This episode is titled Justin Jackson version 1.0 because next year in the NBA draft, we're going to have another Justin Jackson enter. So we're going to have 2 Justin Jacksons and a Josh Jackson currently running around in the NBA. So those J Jackson initials, or first initial surname, is going to be relatively confusing. So, and that's not even to mention the other Jacksons like Reggie Jackson. So if you tweet at me, should I add Jackson, should I drop Jackson, or should I drop J Jackson or add J Jackson, it's going to be pretty tough for me to interpret that sort of a thing. But Justin Jackson was very, very good in this game. Clearly, that sort of shooting from him is unsustainable. He is at 45% on the season, which isn't bad, 32% from 3, but he's just such a meh overall guy. And this was part of his overall statistical profile coming into the NBA. He just didn't seem like he'd do anything really well. And you look at his per 36 numbers and it plays out that way. 11 points per 36 is terrible. 1.5 threes, 4.6 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 0.7 steals, 0.3 blocks. They are all absolutely horrible per 36 numbers. 72 from the line, 45 from the field, true shooting of 53. He is starting a lot of games for the Kings. He is playing decent enough minutes. He's just not very good. There'll be the occasional game like this, which of course this was a very good performance from Justin Jackson. I don't ever see him becoming a reliable top 100 fantasy player. And I think even assuming him to be a reliable top 200 fantasy player throughout his career is probably stretching it a bit. Over the last 2 months where he is playing 26 minutes per night, he is the 230th ranked player. Now, over the course of time, percentages increase, but in that time, he's actually shooting 57% true shooting, 49 from the field and 79 from the line, getting those 26 minutes. And things increase as you get older or more experienced. Your assist rate goes up, your steal rate tends to go up. But the numbers are just so pedestrian from Justin Jackson that once this team starts to get better, and eventually the Kings will get better, maybe, he was going to be forced into a much, much smaller role. So he's not a 12-team league ad. He's not a 14-team league ad. He's probably not even a 16-teamer. That's debatable. But I don't ever see him becoming a staple 12 or 14-team league player at any point in the future. He is already 23 years of age as a rookie, which is obviously fairly old when you consider guys like Markelle Fultz and Dennis Smith and Lonzo are 19 or 20, Jason Tatum, that sort of age. There's a big gap there, and this guy is significantly underperforming them. So great for him to get this. I'm sure he can put that up on his mantelpiece, that he got a Young Gun of the Night award. Not sure there's going to be much coming for him in the future. The dud of the night. It wasn't a terrible night for most of the highly owned players, but the pencil Harrison Barnes, and you can look at his line and go, Josh, he had 15 points, and that is correct. But 3 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 5 of 14 from the field. This is why Barnes will never be a good fantasy player, because he does nothing outside of score. And he scores well. 19 points per game this year, 19 points per game last season. He's hitting threes at an elevated rate, but his rebounding is not great. He gets no assists, no steals, no blocks. He's subpar field goal percentage. He's below league average true shooting, and he has been for his 2 years in Dallas. He is a fine-ish rotisserie guy because he's sort of mediocre to below mediocre in all categories. He's got no real huge positive strength, although you could say the points are nice for a later round pick. But I just don't see the upside for him to ever get better than this. From a fantasy point of view, does he start getting 4 assists per game? Probably not. 1.2 steals? No way. 0.7 blocks? No. 48% from the field? I highly doubt it. I just don't see any room for him to improve anywhere. Now, this is the dud of the night, but it doesn't mean that he should be dropped or anything along those lines, but it just goes to show the deficiencies in his game, which really does play a part in the value of him from a fantasy point of view. Let's go into these games now. There are 13 of them, so there's a shit ton to talk about. But again, I'm not going to go over every single performance because it's not really necessary at this point of the year with leagues when we can't trade, clearly. We're just looking to acquire guys off the wire or work out who's droppable and all that sort of gear. The first game, the Cavs beat the Raptors. Valanciunas, again, another big game against Cleveland. Still just limited minutes, but another nice performance, while Ibaka had one of his better games. And getting 12 rebounds out of Serge is a little bit unexpected. It was a shit show from Kyle Lowry, 5 points on 11 shots, while Pascal Siakam, again, was solid. How long is it going to be, do we think, until Siakam becomes the starting power forward? Is it next year? I'd say probably 19-20 is more of a likely scenario, but he looks solid. 10, 5, and 4 with a steal for Pascal. His minutes are going to be consistent the rest of the way. We're consistently in that low 20s range, and there's something there from him. So good numbers from him there. On the Cavs, why Jeff Green continues to get starting roles in the NBA befuddles me. 25 minutes for Jeff, 12 points with 3 blocks.
My name is Jeff.
And we're really seeing Larry Nance get minimised. 16 minutes for Nance, 6 points, a steal, and a block. Clearly not a 12-team league player anymore, with Green and Tristan Thompson cutting into that playing time. No George Hill. Jordan Clarkson had an opportunity, and he was shithouse. 6 points on 11 shots in 19 minutes. Very, very far from being a 12-team league guy. LeBron was great. Kevin Love was awesome, 18 and 15 as well, while Rocket Rodney Hood had 17 points with 2 steals, and he is just a points-type streamer, but not a guy you want to own, while Kyle Korver finally returned to action after an extended absence due to his brother's death and a foot issue. The Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers, Jahlil Okafor actually alive. He played 16 minutes and had 15 points with 5 rebounds and a block. These are the sort of numbers that let some fool come into my mentions and tell me that he was a top 10 center in the NBA. That's clearly a dream. But it's nice to see him go out there and do something. This doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to be in the rotation every night. Some of it is to do with the fact that Damari Carroll left the game early and the blue swimmer Alan Crabb didn't play. So there was more Dante Cunningham and Quincy Acey and Rondé Hollis-Jefferson forced down positions, meaning there were minutes open there at center. But I still didn't like the fact that we only got 20 minutes out of Jarrett Allen, who's been playing really well, and he is clearly the future for this team. So we'll see how that all pans out. D'Angelo Russell only had 19 minutes of playing time, 6, 6, and 5 with 2 steals and 2 triples. Still good numbers, but the up and down nature of these rotations is going to be continually frustrating. Spencer Dinwiddie played 12 minutes the other day. He played 33 here and had 16, 6, and 6. And we love that. We love those numbers. But what does he do next game? Where does his minutes go? Who bloody knows? It could be anywhere. It could be 12. It could be 32. Who knows? Karis LeVert had been playing well, but this wasn't a good one. 4, 3, and 4 in 24 minutes. But I still think that he is a borderline must-own guy. Not quite, but borderline. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, 17 minutes only for Rondé, 5, 3, and 1 with a block. More rotation shenanigans going on in the NBA. Milton Doyle, who is a real person, he played at 12 minutes as well. That should tell you just about all you need to know about the rotations in this game. For the Sixers, Richaun Holmes, this is what we envisaged was a possibility when Embiid went down. 11 and 5, 4 assists and 4 blocks, but the previous 2 games had been a real disappointment. I still think he's a 12-team league guy. I'd have Ilyasova over him, who had another double-double, 11 and 13 for Ersan. But Holmes is the guy that you want over Amir Johnson, who dished a weird 6 assists. Markelle Fultz played next to Ben Simmons, which is massive for his value heading into next season. It means really nothing this year, but he played 21 minutes. Simo played 25, and they did play together for a stretch of time. Fultz had 10, 2, and 3, missed his only free throw, but the shot looked okay, and he played off the ball next to Simmons, which he's going to be able to, or going to need to be able to do if he's ever going to be a top 50 guy, which I do believe he can be in a couple of years' time. Simmons had 15, 12, and 6 in only 25 minutes, while Bob Cove, electric again, 12, 6, and 2, 4 triples, 4 steals, 3 blocks. That is almost the unheard of triple 4, which just doesn't, I don't even have a name for that. It's not the Richie Beno, it's not the Gooch. I don't know what a triple 4 would be, but that is, he almost got there, and I almost had to think of a name for it, but luckily he didn't have to stretch the brain that much. JJ Redick had 19 points in 23 minutes with a triple 1. His minutes are consistently low at the moment, and I don't think he's a must-own 12-teamer. The Orlando Magic and the New York Knicks. Now, I praised the Magic the other day for not going through this let's spread the minutes out to everyone route and playing Aaron Gordon and Nick Vucevic big minutes. Turns out that was a load of shit because Vooch played 20 minutes as Gordon played only 28 and DJ Augustine played 20 in this game. We saw big minutes from Mario Hezonja, who had 19 and 6 with 5 triples, a steal and a block. His value is improved by the fact that the Jonathans are out, Simmons and Isaac, and when they come back, he may lose some playing time, while Shelvin Mack, 12, 8, and 8 in 28 minutes. He benefited from the fact that Augustine's minutes were reduced, but even so, Shelvin has been putting up pretty strong numbers, enough to consider him a 12-team league player. I think you still hold Vooch and Gordon despite the low minutes in this game. That could very well bump up next game, but if it sticks at 20, then you cut their asses and you move on. Wes Awundu, Rocket Rodney Purvis, and Jamal Artis played 23, 26, and 32 minutes, and then Magic still won by 24 points. Coaches are doing everything they can to lose, and they are still smacking teams around at times. Really little to see with those Purvis, Awundu, Artis minutes. My man Ken Birch had a double-double, 11 and 10 with 3 blocks in 22 minutes. He has got a real chance to be a 12-team standard league player. On to the Knicks, a guy that needs to be owned is the cock monster, Kyle O'Quinn, 29 minutes, 13-12 with 5 blocks. Enes Kanter, while it's not 100% confirmed, he won't play again this season. That's my opinion anyway. So you got to go and grab that cock off the waiver wire. While Trey Burke had 15 with 4 assists in 32, and he should be owned also. Mick Beasley was out of this one, ill, so that bumped up minutes for guys like Luke Cornett, Isaiah Hicks. It also helped Frankie Ntilikina and Courtney Lee because it pushes Timmy Hardaway more to the 3 and Lance Thomas more to the 4. When Beasley returns, do they run the bullshit again of starting Thomas and pushing Ntilikina to the bench? Well, it's Hornacek, so anything is possible. But that is a concern there for Frank. Now, he played 28 minutes. Ntilikina had 2, 4, and 3 with 2 blocks. You're only really using him in deeper formats, not in 12-team as well. Timmy Hardaway continued. And again, I'll give credit to Hornacek. He continues to give Hardaway his regular playing time, which is all we can ask for in this situation. Now, the last time I praised a coach, and that was Frank Vogel, he went out and dicked me around by playing Vooch 20 minutes. So let's hope that doesn't happen for Timmy here. But he has been consistent in his playing time moving forward. So that's always a good thing for us. And it's a good thing for the integrity of the league as well, I believe. Speaking of the integrity of the league, the Atlanta Hawks lost to the Miami Heat in one of the more nefarious, blatant, disgraceful episodes of coaches coaching to lose. You can hear this argument all the time, and surely it's coming to an end now. Coaches don't tank, front offices do. Coaches and players, they never go out to lose. It is bullshit. It is 100% bullshit. Players don't. Mike Budenholzer went out to lose. He deliberately tried to lose this game. Dwayne Dedman was announced as the starting center, and then minutes before tip-off was, sore rib, he's out. Let's start Miles Plumlee. All right, okay, he's got a sore rib. No worries. And then you've got 8 players available, so the entire second half, Taurean Prince does not play at all. You've got like a 9-point lead or 7-point lead over the Heat with about 7 minutes left, and Prince is over there sitting on his ass on the bench, and you think you'd put your best player in to maybe try and get that win, but no, doesn't see the court at all for a coach's decision, and what a shock, the Heat come back and get the victory. Coaches tank, coaches lose on purpose, and Budenholzer's doing it here. On a positive note, the Baptist, John Collins, had 19 and 10 with 3 triples, a steal, and a block, and he needs to be owned. Damo Lee played 37 minutes, had 16, 9, and 4 with 3 steals. His minutes are consistent. I don't even hate using him in 14 and maybe 12 team as well. Tyler Dorsey jacked up 16 shots, had 18, 6, and 4. But of course, the value in Lee and Dorsey here is coming from the fact that there was just no players available. I liked what DeAndre Bembry did, 6, 5, and 4 with 2 steals. He's not going to be a high scorer. He did hit a weird late 3. But it's his ability to get steals, rebounds, and assists that can be a useful thing for deeper leagues, while Mike the Moose Muscala had 13 and 7 with 3 triples and 2 steals in his extended minutes with The Undertaker out. Speaking of The Undertaker being out, Miles Plumlee started 34 minutes. That's how you know it's a shit show. 6 and 8 for Plumlee in his 34 minutes, while the artist formerly known as Taurean Prince played 10 minutes. Let's see how this goes, but Prince could be a droppable guy if this sort of bullshit continues. Isaiah Taylor is a 12-team guy, 15, 2, and 9. For the Heat, the Iron Shoulder, Goran Dragic, 22 and 10 with 3 steals and 3 triples, while Hassan Whiteside played in the fourth quarter, played well, 28 minutes, 18 and 12 with 3 blocks. Bam Adebayo has now been a DMP in the last 2 games, and Kelly Olynyk is also seeing his minutes suffer. So you can drop Kelly in any 12 or 14 team formats most likely. Jimmy Johnson continues to somewhat make us proud. 10, 3, and 6 with 3 steals for Jim. He is a solid 12-team league guy, while Dwayne Wade had 11, 4, and 6, and Joshie Richardson didn't score well, but still did what he does. 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks, contributing in those categories, and a team leading 36 minutes. The next game, we look at the Golden State Warriors and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Durant had 34 and 10 with 4 assists. Cool, that's great. Quinny Cook, scoreless first half, 12 points in the second half, I think 10 in the fourth quarter. He had 6 assists and 2 triples in 37 minutes, and he needs to be owned. We also saw some flashes from Damian Jones, who closed this game out and played 14 minutes, 8 points with a block. Now, there's a real chance we don't see Jones again this season. There was no Kevon Looney, who'd been really playing well in that front court role. He was ill, and if he returns, Jones might not see the rotation. There is just so many bigs here that even in 20-team leagues, it's hard to consider Jones a guy to go and grab. Jordy Bell had 6 and 7 with 2 blocks, but of course Looney's return could impact that, while you've also got JaVale, you've got Zaza Pachulia in there getting minutes also. Clay was pretty good in his minutes, 20 points in 35 of them. For the Thunder, Westbrook 44, 16, and 6. That is just a monster performance, and his free throw is just a huge, huge boon to that category, going 11 of 12 from the line. Corey Brewer, 10 and 6, but it's the 5 steals. He is an elite steals specialist type of guy for standard leagues, but probably not a must-own in that category. While Paulie George had 20, and Mallow was shitful once more. 12 points in 36 minutes, and Steven Adams also not ideal, 7 of 13. Mallow is not a 12-team league player. The Washington Wizards and the Houston Rockets, the Wizards just got pumped by James Harden pretty much. Johnny Wall was back. He had 9, 4, and 10 in 33 minutes, and that moved Thomas Satoransky to the bench, but Thomas still played 27 minutes. He had 8, 5, and 2. That's not enough to consider that a 12-team league spot, but it is interesting that he played that much. The game was a bit of a blowout, so Otto Porter, Markieff Morris, Brad Beal, none of those guys got to 30 minutes, but Satoransky has really established himself as a rotation guy, and that's important in deeper leagues. Kelly Oubre was atrocious with his shooting percentages, 2 of 11 from the field and 6 of 10 from the line, more of a 14-team league player, while Beal had 27 and Markieff had 14, 6, and 4. And despite Morris playing only 27 minutes, that is still making him a 12-team league guy, I think. For the Rockets, there was no Trevor Ariza. He rested, so Luke Mamute started, and he got 6 steals. He is very good defensively. He doesn't normally get steals in bunches like that, so I don't think there's a lot to look at there. While Gerald Green, I think he's going to have consistent minutes every game here. There'll be players resting around him. Harden, Gordon, Ariza, Paul, Tucker perhaps. Ryan Anderson hurt his ankle in this one. Well, Green's going to get mid-20s to high 20s in minutes. He's going to get you points and threes. He had 16 points with 4 triples, and that can be useful. Capella copped a smack in the eye, but was awesome. 21 and 10 with 2 blocks, but there could be some rests coming there. Well, Chris Paul returned, and he struggled. 8, 2, and 6 in that playing time. I mentioned Ryan Anderson. He lasted only 5 minutes before succumbing to an ankle injury, but he's not impacting any fantasy leagues. He has been dreadful this season, as you're well aware. The Charlotte Hornets and the Chicago Bulls. Kemba Walker, at least the minutes went back up, but still only 31. 9 points on 11 shots with 4 assists. You might have to make hard decisions. You might need to cut Kemba because the Hornets aren't going anywhere. Nick Batum was on a minutes limit of 20, so he played 28. Luke Walton clearly coaching Charlotte here. 11, 4, and 5 for Batum. If he's going to be in that limited role, it's hard to see him as a 12-team league guy. While Malik Monk, another strong game from Malik. 21 points with 5 triples, 19 in the fourth quarter, 2 assists, a steal, and a block. He's getting real close to 12-team league value, with Kemba winding it back, with Batum struggling, with Jez Lamb not doing as much. Monk is really starting to put up some strong numbers on a consistent basis, and this may be something that you could pay attention to in your standard formats. Starvin Marvin Williams had 18, 8, and 4 with 4 triples. Cool. He's just as likely to have 2, 2, and 2 in the next game, so I wouldn't get too excited there. While Bill Hernan-Gomez, only the 16 minutes for Bill there. 11 and 8, though, that's good enough. That's good enough for 14-team leagues. It's probably good enough for 12-teamers, and if they reduce Dwight Howard, who played 32 and had 23 and 17 here, then Hernan-Gomez becomes a comfortable top 100 guy. On to the Bulls, just The shit show continued. Every player over 20 minutes except for Noah Vonleh, who got injured. Lauri Markkanen played 24 minutes. He had 24 points with 7 rebounds and 5 triples, and then didn't play the fourth quarter, and the Bulls still won. Suck it, Chicago. I did used to be a Bulls fan, but this is the bullshit that you get. Like, going out there, deliberately not playing this guy, and you still get the win. Like, suck it, and suck it hard. Sorry to all the Bulls fans, but it's bullshit. This is continual bullshit. Like, this is your jewel of the Jimmy Butler crown. Let him go out there. Let him do some stuff. Why are we playing the sexy boy Sean Kilpatrick 29 minutes? What on earth does Sean Kilpatrick offer this team now or in the future? Now, for you in fantasy, hey, there's streaming value. And I've been talking up the sexy boy for the last week. He had 21 points in 29 minutes. And with Denzel the Hammer Valentine out for the rest of the year, he's going to have a consistent role, probably in the mid to high 20s in minutes. So that is something to pay attention to. Also, notorious shot chucker Justin Holiday got his minutes back. 28 minutes, 19, 1 and 3 with 3 steals and 4 triples. Will he continue to get large minutes with these injuries? Maybe. Oh, sorry. Injuries. Maybe. I'd say he's more of a streamer, while Cam Payne and Jaren Grant and Ryan Archer-Jacquino, they continue to split the minutes there in the guard spot, rendering all of them useless for 12-team formats. Not like you saw something good out of Payne, which you did, and he was playing well, but he was playing too well, so we had to get noted spuds like Archer-Jacquino and Grant into the rotation as Fred Hoiberg continues to justify coaching to lose. And to be honest, Hoiberg's bad enough of a coach. If he just did his best, he'd probably lose anyway. He's doing like the Costanza of doing whatever comes into your mind, do the opposite. Like, he's trying to lose and he's winning games, whereas previously he was trying to win and he was losing them. So it's like he has to go against his first instinct in order to win games, which is what's happening at the moment. Shout out to Georgie. The Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Celtics were on their 5th string point guard. There was no Kyrie Irving, Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier, or Shane Larkin. So Kadeem Allen got the start. He played 23 minutes and had 2 points on 4 shots. There's a likelihood that Rozier and Larkin are back for the next game, so very little to see there with Allen. There was weird players running point. We had Al Horford doing it, Jason Tatum did it, Jaylen Brown did it, and Tatum, Brown, and Horford all put up pretty good numbers, as you'd expect when the rest of the team is made up of G League talents. Marcus Morris was an abomination, shooting at 13 points in 33 minutes on 16 shots, but I do think that he remains a 12-team guy for the remainder of this season, while Greggy Munro...
As Greg runs in, we realise this could get dangerous.
9 and 10 in 23 minutes for Munro with a steal and a block. He's a solid 14 to 16 team league guy, I believe, for the rest of the year. Let's go on to the Bucks. Yanni, 29, 11 and 6. Bledsoe, 18, and Middleton had 28 and 9 with 3 steals. So big numbers from their big studs there. While the Muppet, John Henson, 11 and 4, 3 blocks in 28 minutes, and Thon McCurr was back for this one, or he didn't actually see the court, but he was available to play. So I think the Muppet is a 12-team league guy. Jabari Parker also creeping back to that. 31 minutes with everyone healthy, with no one getting ejected. 12, 3, and 3. They're not brilliant numbers, but if he's going to play 30 a night, then I do want him in a 12-team league. Well, Tone Snell was shithouse again. 0 points in 17 minutes, and there's a chance that Malcolm Brogdon and or Matthew Dellavedova could be back next game, and that's going to really put the ability to Snell to actually remain in the rotation to the test. He is dreadful. He is, well, I was going to say he's not good, but I think dreadful covers that. The Portland Trailblazers and the Dallas Mavericks, just a horrible, horrible loss from Portland, compounded by the fact that Damian Lillard suffered a ankle injury. He was pretty circumspect after the game. We've got to make sure that we get ourselves right for the playoffs. So I would expect that Lillard misses some time here. Nothing is confirmed. I've seen it mentioned a couple of times over on Reddit that Lillard is out for the season. No, that's not true at this point. It might be by the time you listen to this podcast that he's going to rest the rest of the regular season. But at this point, it's not. He left the arena on a cart, which again doesn't necessarily mean anything. And you'd have to think that a game or two are going to be missed by Lillard. That's going to open up some playing time for Shabazz Napier, who had 13 points, 4 triples, and 4 assists, and he could be a strong add. Nurk had 15 and 13, while the Chief, Al-Farouq Aminu,
sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
10 and 6 with 2 triples and a steal for Amino, while McCullum had 16, 4 and 8. Al Farouk is more of he's a 14-teamer. He's a borderline 12-team league guy. It was Zach Collins who got the bump in minutes in this game with Ed Davis out 8 and 7, while Myers Leonard had 6 and 4 in 14, rendering neither of those guys really useful anywhere outside of 20-teamers. Of course, you know what I think of Zach Collins long term. The Mavericks get the victory. Shockingly enough, Dennis Smith has now developed knee soreness, so he won't play on Wednesday. He was great, 18, 8 and 8, 2 steals and 2 triples. Now, you should be getting an understanding of why I was really, really keen on going the old Dutch rudder on Dennis Smith. I think he's going to be excellent. I think he's going to be a top 50 player next season, potentially. He's looked great down the stretch, but there's going to be some shenanigans going on here, no doubt. JJ Barea returned. He had 15, 2 and 5. The Mavericks do have a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday, so we might not see Barea or Dirk or the Pencil or Yogi Ferrell or anyone. There's many players they may actually decide to rest on this back-to-back. Nerlens Noel news. He has been suspended for 5 games, so that's his regular season done. Well, let's be honest, that's his season done. So that opens up extra playing time for Salah Mejri, who had 5 and 5 with a block. He can be a blocks streamer now, Mejri. Asa Harrison, 26 minutes, 6, 4 and 4 for 3 steals. That's not bad. 1 of 8 shooting is bad, but the other numbers are okay. And if Smith's going to miss Wednesday with 6 games on, as Harrison, don't be shocked if he puts in a decent performance, while Maxi Kleber also gets a bump. 2 threes, 2 blocks, 9 points, 8 rebounds in today's game. And with Nerlens out, the extra minutes are going to come his way. And again, a risk of Dirk sitting out. Perhaps Dwight Powell, who's been bothered by knee issues, could sit out Wednesday as well. So Maxi Kleber becomes a marginally appealing option. The Lakers and the Jazz, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope played 40 minutes in a meaningless game, 28 and 5 with 5 triples, while Josh, the Hitman Hart, he had 35 minutes, 11, 4, 3, 2, 1 with 2 triples. So contributed right across the box score. With Lonzo out on Wednesday, with Brandon Ingram still dealing with a concussion, Hart is an okay guy to go and add for Wednesday. Actually, one of the higher priority players. Alex Caruso started, but it was Tyler Ennis who played better. 10, 7, and 5 for Ennis with 2 steals, while Caruso had 3 points and 2 assists. Maybe you'd stream in Ennis if Lonzo is out again on Wednesday, or maybe it's Caruso. None of those guys spectacularly stick out. The future MVP, Kyle Kuzma, had 26 and 6, but just a horrific night from the free throw line. That's a real killer. 7 of 12 there, while Julius Randle almost had the low-end triple-double. 12, 12, and 9 for him. With Lonzo out, the assists do rise for Julius. On to the Jazz, ravishing Rick Rubio, apparently unstoppable now. 31, 6, and 8 with 4 triples for Rubio. He has been astonishing this season. Started off the season ridiculously well, completely disappeared, and now is the best point guard in the NBA. Hyperbole, clearly, but he's ridiculous. He's unbelievable at the moment. Rudy Gobert, 12, 16, and 5 with 3 blocks, and the Don had 26 and 6 with 4 triples and a steal. So it's more of just the same from the Jazz. Jingle and Joe, 13, 3, and 7. Derek Favors, 15 and 8. Very, very little changes for them. They are one of the more consistent teams for fantasy, and you should feel comfortable in your expectations of what they're going to bring down the stretch of the season. The Indiana Pacers and the Denver Nuggets, another team, the Pacers, who are fairly consistent. Oladipo, 25, 6, and 7. But man, his defense, it's crazy. 4 steals and 2 blocks, continues to rack these up at stupid rates, while Daz Collison had 16 with 5 assists. And I think Collison's a 12-team guy. Miles Turner was shit Miles Turner today, but he did still add 2 steals and a block and had a 3. Only 9 points and 2 rebounds is fairly disappointing. Domantas Sabonis only saw 14 minutes, but had 14 points. Leave him as a deeper league guy, while Thaddeus had 15 and 10, and Bojan Bogdanovic was empty, 11 and 3, as he is wont to do. For the Nuggets, Nick Jokic continues to be
pretty good. It's pretty good.
He's playing a shit ton of minutes. He is trying to lead this team to the playoffs. 36 and 7, 4 triples, 4 steals, 1 block, 65% shooting. He is putting in a massive stretch run. The Blue Arrow had 12, 4, and 7 with 3 steals, and good old fartin' Will Barton, 26, 10, and 5. We know he's inconsistent, but that's good. Baby Neck Wilson Chandler returned, wore a mask, and was shit. No need to own him in 12-teamers. While Paulie Millsap had 14, 7, and 4, and the 4 blocks are pretty bloody sexy. The next game, I don't even know what the hell to say. The Sacramento Kings and the Phoenix Suns. The Kings were without Zach Randolph, who is apparently dead. Just haven't heard anything about him at all. He's just out now for personal reasons. Garrett Temple, we're not going to see him again. Costa Koufos is out of the rotation. And with G League playoffs, there was no Jack Cooley or Jakar Sampson. So we had just weird and wonderful rotations, but big minutes for Justin Jackson, as I touched on. De'Aaron Fox, who played 39, and Bogdan Bogdanovic, who played 37 minutes, along with Willie Cauley-Stein. And all 4 of those guys put up big numbers. Now, if they're going to continue to run this rotation, then Foxy and Bogdan are 12-team guys, as is Cauley-Stein. Vince Carter was the starting power forward because Skal Labissiere was out. 7 and 4 for Vince in 21 minutes, while Budrick had a shit game. He'd been playing well. The steals were still there, and he still should be a 12-team league guy. While Nige Hayes, he played 22 minutes. He had the bad version of a Richie Beno, 2 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists, but that's 20-plus minutes in 2 consecutive games for Nige. Yeah, you'd have to be 30-teamers, I reckon, to be looking at Nige here. On to the Suns. No Devin Booker, no Alfred Payton, no TJ Warren, and no Alex Len, until later on they decided that no, Alex Len was going to play, and not only did he play, but he played 32 minutes. Just another weird set of events. 17 and 15 for Len with very little else. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know why Big Sauce played only 3 minutes so they could give 32 minutes to Alex Len. The coaching decisions in Phoenix continue to be absolutely crazy. Joshy Jackson is a must-own. 28 and 6, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 2 triples. Yes, it can be impacted if Warren and Booker come back, and I think Booker might be back on Friday. Not so sure about Warren. While Daniel House, yes, he actually plays for Phoenix. 14, 6, and 5 in 28 minutes for House. He was aided again by the fact that Troy Daniels only saw 9 minutes due to an ankle sprain. But of course, Booker, Warren, Payton, if they come back, then House is really very much not going to do anything. Shaq Harrison had 10 points with 2 steals. He's more of a steals streamer, while Tyler Ulis had 13, 3, and 9. Another strong night from Ulis. Another field goal percentage disaster. And his value is going to crater once those other guys come back. It was a shitty night from Marquise Chris, but I don't think we can complain too much considering how well he's played recently. 6 and 13 with a block, and I do believe he is a 12-team league guy. Len, I'm not so convinced, despite the fact that he was ruled out and then came in and played 32 minutes like a ghost. The last game of the night, just a terrible, no-good loss from the San Antonio Spurs. Aldridge was great, 35 and 9 with 2 steals and 3 blocks. Pat Mills had 17 with 5 assists. He's a streaming option. Rudy Gay had 13. Kyle Anderson had 4 blocks. DeJounte had 8 rebounds and 4 steals. And Murray is a 12-team guy, I think. Not sure about Anderson. Well, Dan Green brought the defense, and that's where his value lies, and that can be useful, or it might be completely useless to your team. On to the Clippers. There was no Danilo Gallinari. He banged his hand again, and it's sore. He can't ball up a fist. I don't think we're going to see Gallinari for the rest of the year, so that means you're going to get Wes Johnson, CJ Williams, Sindarius Thornwell starting in that spot, and you want absolutely nothing to do with them. But you do want Ty Wallace. Now, he played 31 minutes, which is good. Only had 4 points, but still a steal, a block. He's really providing those Danny Green type of numbers. Toby Harris had 31 and 9. Lou Williams had 22 and 2, while Austin Rivers continues to surprise. 18 with 5 assists, and the table Montrezl Harrell had 16 and 8. He's aided by the fact that the Rooster is out, and he is a fairly strong pickup at this point in the season. All right, let's swing our asses over and talk some DFS now with a 6-game slate coming up. But we'll start with the perfect lineup from the 13-game slate from Tuesday. On FanDuel, Jose Calderon, 37.8, and Russ had 72.2 there, your point guards. At shooting guard, the outstanding combination of Damian Lee and Jim Harden, 41.8 for Damo, while Jimmy had 66.5. At small forward, Bob Cove had 42.2, and Justin Jackson had 39.6. The power forwards was Marvin Williams, 36.6, and LaMarcus Aldridge, 62.3, while Kyle Coco Quinn had 40.9 for a total of 439.9, and that cost $59,900. On DraftKings, Calderon 37, Justin Jackson 40. And I know I say it all the time, but why the hell is Justin Jackson a shooting guard eligible player on DraftKings? I probably should have this in front of me. How much has he played at shooting guard? He's playing small forward and power forward all year, but somehow he is a shooting guard eligible player. Nonsense. Farton Will Barton 49.5, LaMarcus Aldridge 57.75, Kem Birch 34, Westbrook 77, KCP 41.75, and ravishing Rick Rubio 51.5 for a total of 388.5, and that cost $49,900 dues. 6 games on Wednesday. 6 game would be a lovely slate for DFS, but this is the worst time of the year that you can be playing DFS. So again, don't do it. Don't play DFS. We're going to go through it because I know some of you can't help yourselves, but don't do it. The first game of the night, the Dallas Mavericks and the Orlando Magic. Dennis Smith is out. Check on Dirk. Check on John Isaac. Check on JJ Barea. Check on John Simmons. Check on every bloody person in this game because it is going to be an absolute shit show of a contest. If Dirk happens to... Well, there's a lot of situations. You could be looking at value for Aaron Harrison with Dennis Smith out. You could be looking at Yogi Ferrell if JJ Barea's out. Dwight Powell, Salah Mejri, Maxi Kleber. But I don't have confidence in any of these guys to consider them in cash, even if these players are ruled out. On the Magic side of things, it is another one of these tank games. Are they going to be limiting Vooch and Gordo again? Potentially. I do really like Hazonia. I think Shelvin Mack's a fairly consistent cash guy, but I don't know what happens with DJ Augustin after today's disaster in terms of playing time. Mack at 4,500. Yeah, like it. He has been really consistent with what he's been doing. So I think that is actually a guy you can use for cash here. While Aaron Harrison at minimum salary, does he get the bump with Smith out? He dropped in 25 today, so he's got a real chance to comfortably exceed that minimum salary. Barea at 52, I'm not that confident he plays, but if he does, I like it quite a bit, but we don't know that. While Yogi Ferrell at 43, you can only really rely upon Ferrell for tournaments. DJ Augustin at 5,700, I would have thought that was great until what the bullshit that happened today, and there is a huge element of risk involved just given the nature of this contest. At shooting guard, we have literally got one player shooting guard eligible who's going to play, and that's Kyle Collinsworth, and I don't think you want too much to do with him. At small forward, it's the pencil Harrison Barnes, 6,700. No. John Simmons, Dorian Finney-Smith, who sat out today's game but will start on Wednesday. I don't see any love with those guys, nor with Doug McDirt. Mario Hezonja is up to 5,600, and I do really like him, especially if we get Simmons and Isaac sitting out. At power forward, Powell's at 4,000. He had 24 points today, Dwight Powell, in 19 minutes. I believe he is at risk of sitting out this one as well, but he also could find himself pushed from 20 minutes to 27 minutes, really upping the value at 4,000. So he's someone to consider, as is Maxi Kleber at 37. Both of those guys are potentially in a good situation. As Gordon's at 77, the numbers are really, really pedestrian recently, and minutes are on the way down, so I'm not super keen there. Well, Johnny Isaac's at 45. If he plays, who knows, doesn't play all that often, he is a tournament sort of a guy. At center, Mejri's at 4,500. I don't have confidence in that. While Vooch at 9,300, that is way too expensive. The other guy we want to look at here is Kem Birch, minimum salary power forward, who dropped in 35 today. That's 10x value for those of you keeping score at home. I think that Birch is worth looking at. Again, it's very, very hard to rely upon him in cash, but he's got great tournament upside, as we saw with what he did in today's contest. On DraftKings, Shelvin Mack again is a nice cash guy, whereas Kleber, Harrison, and Mejri are some GPP options. And Dwight Powell at 5,000 obviously has lower appeal on DraftKings than what he does on FanDuel. Don't like Barnes, Gordon, Vooch over here. Mario Hezonja at 53 is in a pretty good spot though. Let's go on to the next game. We're talking Philadelphia 76ers and the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons are favored by 1, and the total is 212 points here. Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot is questionable, but you shouldn't care about that. The two guys we want to check on are Luki Kennard and Jimmy Ennis in Detroit. Obviously, both of those guys being out opens up the playing time for Stan Johnson quite a bit, and it can open up some stuff for Langston Galloway. If one of those two guys sits Kennard or Ennis, then the other one benefits. So if Ennis is out, then Kennard gets a boost. If Kennard is out, then Ennis gets a boost. So it is something to pay some attention to. At point guard, Reggie Jackson's at 5,800. I feel pretty good about Jackson in cash and going bang. He'll get 28. He'll get me 28 points. And I feel good about a point per minute production from Reggie Jackson with what he's doing. While Markel Fultz at 41, Ish Smith at 44, and TJ McConnell at 35 are point guards who I don't think that I'd want to use. I'm actually into JJ Redick here at 5,000. I feel good in his cash floor. Not so certain of his tournament upside, but I think for cash floor, that's good. While Ballinelli at 45 is a little bit more up and down and more of a tournament player. While Kennard at minimum salary, Ennis out, Kennard in. I'm in on Kennard at 35, but we need to pay attention to that clearly. At small forward, Bob Cov's at 6,000. He is just cranking out the numbers, even in limited minutes. 37 average over his last 5 at 6,000. I am in on Covington. Reggie Bullock and Stan Johnson. I think Johnson you'd look at as a tournament guy. Bullock I think has got limited upside and the floor is actually falling out for him at this point in time. At power forward, Ilyasova at 5,000. Totally on board with that for cash. Actually love it for cash. While Amir Johnson at 3,900. Yeah, maybe for a tournament. Actually, I don't even hate it as a low-end cash guy if you're throwing in a guy like Tone Davis, a high-priced player in there. Benny Simmons is at 9,700. I really do like that for cash. I think that he should be... he's been pushing 50 majority of games, and I think the Pistons can keep this close enough that he should be in that zone. Tone Tolliver's at 52, almost a lock for cash, just a solid floor, and probably should be getting you 28 to 30 instead of 25. Hank Allison, minimum salary for Allison. He's going to get minutes, probably not going to do anything. At center, Rashawn Holmes, 4,200, in on Holmes here. Love the price. Well, Drummond at 10,000, I'm in on that as well. No Blake Griffin, no Joel Embiid to go up against. This should be a 50-55 type performance from Andre Drummond. Over on DraftKings, a bunch of guys I like for cash and tournaments. Holmes, Ilyasova, Redick, Jackson, Covington, Simmons, Drummond, and that's not even mentioning guys like Tone Tolliver or the upside of a Luke Kennard. This is a game that I think you should feel a level of confidence in the playing time of both teams, and that's a great thing for cash games. The next game we take a look at, we've got the Miami Heat and the Atlanta Hawks. Yes, they did play today, and now they go to Atlanta to play the same game again. The Miami Heat are favored by 8.5, and the total is 205. Budenholzer will have the game plan down now. He'll know exactly what to do to lose, considering he inadvertently almost won, so I don't imagine it being as close as what it was today. The Undertaker, Dwayne Dedman, was a late scratch with that rib issue. If he is out, then of course we're going way in on John Collins, and definitely in on Mike the Moose Muscala. I don't care if Miles Plumlee starts. He is just one of the biggest non-factors in the NBA for a fantasy point of view. Does the artist formerly known as Prince play more than 10 minutes? Well, I guess that depends on if the game is close. If the game isn't close, then he'll play 32 minutes and be an excellent value guy. If it's not, if the Hawks are close or if the Hawks are in it, then formerly just won't play. And that's the sort of bullshit you've got to deal with this team. Tyler Johnson's at 4,600. He had a nice 26-point game today, which was fine. Another really positive matchup for him, so I've got no problem with considering him as a tournament guy. Whereas Isaiah Taylor at 6,000, I feel okay about him in cash, as I do with the Iron Shoulder Goran Dragic at 6,600. Tyler Dorsey obviously went big today. He's at 3,600. He has been up and down, so I don't think we can 100% lock him in, but that sort of production on almost minimum salary should be in your GP people, as should Damo Lee, who's at 4,900, just dropped a casual 42 today, has been getting you around 26 a game, which I think is absolutely fine for cash, but the more important thing is he's getting 30 minutes a night. He's not a player that's going to contribute to winning, so therefore he will stay on the court more than some of these other guys. The Duke, Dwayne Wade, neither of those guys I think are really worth paying attention to. In fact, Wade might actually sit this one out. Justice Winslow at 4,700. I don't really want a huge amount to do with that. While Joshie Richardson at 6,200, more of a tournament sort of a player. Formley's at 66. You can't fully trust this at all. And by fully trust it, I mean trust it in any sort of situation. But there's obviously upside for him to go for 40. And that's what you want in a tournament spot, especially if people had their asses burnt by him today. He could very easily come out and be a low-owned tournament winner. At power forward, the Baptist, John Collins, 6,300. That's 30 plus minutes for 2 consecutive games for Collins. If the Undertaker is out again, he's a lock to break that value, so I do like him here. Jim Johnson at 65. I'll take the Undertaker at 63 every day there over Jimmy. And Olynyk, no thanks. At center, Muscala, 43. Love it if the Undertaker is out. Less interested if Deadman plays, but there's still something there, whereas Deadman at 6,200 had been really playing well before his rib just got way too sore for him to play. So I'm not super keen there, while Hassan Whiteside at 7,300 blew through his value today. A massive positive matchup for him again, so I'd be okay with, and probably not in cash, but I don't think it's a bad move. I'd look more towards tournaments for Whiteside. The other thing that was a positive with Hassan today is early fouls, and he still played 28 minutes, which is a great sign. On to DraftKings. Tyler Johnson, I think, is a tournament guy. There's a bunch of cash options. Muscala, Damo Lee, Isaiah Taylor, the Iron Shoulder, the Baptist, and Hassan Whiteside especially at 6,600. Also, John Collins at 5,100. That should be almost the first bloke that you pencil into your lineup at that sort of a price over on DraftKings. Let's go on to the next one. We have got the Memphis Grizzlies, and the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans are favored by 13, and the total is 216 points. There are going to be shit shows all over the place. No Tyreek, no Andy Harrison, no JaMychal Green, no Wayne Selden, and you've got Marshawn Brooks questionable. So there's opportunities opening up everywhere. How this rotation gets run is anyone's guess at this point, but there are going to be situations that are available for many players. At point guard, Rajon Rondo, 6,300. I'd love it at 5'9". At 6'3", I think it might be just taking a bit of the edge off, especially in a game which could be a real blowout, although Memphis has been a bit feisty lately. Marcus Teague, not listed on FanDuel. He could be, I think he is a DraftKings option, not on FanDuel at this point. Benny McLemore at 3,800. Easily can get you 28 with everyone injured. No Saldo, no Harrison, no Tyreek. Clearly an option, but I have no confidence. But a great tournament guy. Well, Drew at 8,800. I think the matchup level, the poor quality of the opposition makes Holiday at 8,800 not the best guy to take a look at. Kobe Simmons will likely start at point guard again. He's at 3,600. He's doing very, very little with that time, so I don't think that he is a strong cash guy, and he's also a limited upside tournament player. At small forward, Marshawn Brooks, 3,900. Clearly crushing it before his injury, averaging 32 in the 2 games that he played. So I think you have to use him if he is ready to go. Well, Dylan Brooks at 4,500. Dropped 46 last game, but if the other Brooks is back, I'm not sure that Dylan can quite do what he did in that game, and I wouldn't be locking him into any lineup. Etuan Moore, very little interest. Same with Darius Miller or Solomon Hill. At power forward, Jarrell Martin at 4,100. No JaMychal Green. Yes, he did shit the bed last time, Jarrell, and had 19 points. But that's not far off 4,100's value. I think he's a great cash play here and should be able to exceed that. Well, Ivan Rabb at 4,000. He was strong without JaMychal last game too. We don't know what's happening with Marc Gasol, whether he will play, whether he'll get, infected pubes. Something might go on and he might not be able to play. So Rab could get an option here at $4,000. He could be interesting. Tone Davis at 12.3. Davis is going to put up numbers in 27 minutes, in 37 minutes. He is okay, especially with a lot of GPP type of guys around at those lower sort of salaries. Well, Nick Mirotic at 4,300. I think Mirotic is worth a flyer at that price in case this gets ugly early and he finds a groove and gets some extra playing time. But of course, for cash, no way. Speaking of no way, Marc Gasol, 6,300, a nice price dip, but I have no confidence in anything that he's going to do, while Deontay Davis is as inconsistent as they come. On DraftKings for this one, Davis at 11.8, I love, and then a bunch of tournament guys. Marcus Teague at 32, Ivan Rabb at 33, Benny McLemore, and Marshawn Brooks. Jarrell Martin, not as appealing on DraftKings at 4,700, but that's still not a terrible spot to use him. Or Dylan Brooks at 4,600 could be an interesting player on DraftKings. Let's go on to the next game now. We've got the Boston Celtics, the Toronto Raptors. I'm guessing that Rozier and Larkin, at least one of those guys, are back, so we're not going to get Kadeem Allen starting at point guard, and I think Rozier will be back in action here. He's at 7,300, and I'd be ready to use him as a fairly strong cash guy if we get word that he's playing. Kyle Lowry was terrible against Cleveland, only 16 points. He's at 8,100. Given the dearth of quality options, you could make an argument to use Lowry in cash. I'd probably want to go a different way, but you could make that argument for Kyle. Well, DeLon Wright and Freddie VanVleet, I'm not really feeling either of those players here. At shooting guard, DeRozan's at 7,900. I love the cash floor here. Probably a 35, 36 point floor, which is pretty good given the weird nature of this time of the year. While 5,500 for Jaylen Brown, I actually think that's a pretty good spot as well. He's playing very well, and the extra opportunities coming his way are being converted into fantasy points. CJ Miles at small forward, no way. Jason Tatum at 6,600. Tatum's been good. 32 over the last 5. I just think that price is probably a little bit too high, especially if Tito 3 Sticks returns. That might just dips a little bit of Tato's value away. At power forward, Siakam, no. Ibaka, 5,500. I actually like Ibaka at 5,500. Has been playing much better over the last week or so. I think he's worth going for here, while Marcus Morris at 57, despite his shit show performance today, I do think that Marcus is a decent enough cash play. At centre, Horford's at 7,100. Totally fine with using him at that price. I think it's a good cash play. While Valanciunas at 65 and Jakob Poeltl at 4,000. Not sure I could say I have the same level of confidence in either of those guys. On DraftKings, I think Rozier at 67 is obviously a good cash play if he's ready to go. Otherwise, if we don't here, you'd throw him into a tournament and hope it works out. Whereas Lowry, DeRozan, and Horford, I think are all pretty good cash plays, especially Horford at 6,500. Jaylen and Tatum, not quite looking as solid as what they do on FanDuel. Let's go on to the last game of the day. We've got the San Antonio Spurs and the Los Angeles Lakers. Luol Deng is questionable. Cool. Brandon Ingram is also questionable. Lonzo Ball isn't going to play. At point guard, Pat Mills at 4,700. Mills' numbers recently have been pretty okay, and I think you can have a level of confidence in him for cash. Probably not a massive upside, but what he's been doing has been enough, I think. Tone Parker, no. DeJounte Murray, 6,600 is probably too high for me for Murray, so I'd pass on him. But the matchup is really positive, and if he just has a night where the shots go in, or he actually takes them, then 40 points is not out of the question for DeJounte. Alex Caruso is listed as a shooting guard, so we'll get to him in a sec. Tyler Ennis at 39. Had 31 today. Clearly great value, but confidence in him is low. KCP at 58. Love KCP for cash. Really strong option, I think, here. While Joshy, the Hitman Hart at 4,500. Ready to go in with him as well, despite the shit matchup. Caruso, Ginobili, Green. Maybe you throw Caruso into a tournament, but I don't really feel great about that. At small forward, Ingram's at 58. If he is ready to go, I'm in on that. I think they'll give him minutes. He'll run offense at point guard, which is where he saw great value when Lonzo was out through January. Rudy Gay and Kyle Anderson do not get anything flowing for me. The future MVP, Kyle Kuzma at power forward, 6,500. If Ingram's out, that's a lock. If Ingram is in, I still think that it's a cash play as well as a tournament. While Julius Randle at 8,100, that is too high in my estimation. While LaMarcus Aldridge at 91, love it. Just doing everything possible in every game, and I think that's a strong cash spot. At center, Pau Gasol, Ivica Zubac, Channing Frye, Brook Lopez. I'm going to go ahead and say probably none of those guys should be in your lineup. On DraftKings, KCP, Murray, and Aldridge, I think are all cash and tournament guys. All right, let's go now to the other DFS sites and run through some options. On Yahoo for tournaments, Vooch, Terry Rozier, DeJounte Murray, Marshawn Brooks, Ben McLemore, Salah Mejri, Ivan Rabb, Maxi Kleber, Marcus Teague, Azza Harrison. And for cash and tournaments, Greggy Munro, Bellinelli, Muscala, Siakam, Mills, Moore, Etuan Moore, Tone Tolliver, Shelvin Mack, Jarrell Martin, Tyler Johnson, Ilya Sova, Damo Lee, Rashawn Holmes, Reginald Jackson, Isaiah Taylor, the Baptist John Collins, DeMar DeRozan, Julius Randle, Holiday, Drummond, and Tone Davis. On Moneyball for tournaments, Rozier, DeJounte, Rashawn, Dylan Brooksy Brooks, Marshawn Brooksy Brooks, Ben McLemore, Patty Mills, Ivan Rabb, Maxi Kleber. And for cash, Josh the Hitman Hart, Anthony Tolliver, Jarrell Martin, Tyler Johnson, Reddick, Ilyasova, Damo Lee, Reggie Jackson, Isaiah Taylor, Rondo, KCP, the Iron Shoulder, Bob Cove. the Baptist, the future MVP, LaMarcus, Drew, Benny Simmons, Andre Drummond, and Tone Davis. And on draft stars to wrap it up, Terry Rozier for tournaments, DeRozan, Whiteside, Harrison, the Pencil Barnes, Dylan, Brooksy Brooks, Salah, Mejri, Maxi Kleber, Darius Miller, Marcus Teague, and Az Harrison, Tyler Dorsey, Henry Allenson. For cash and tournaments, Ivan Rabb, Stan Johnson, Ben McLemore, Shelvin Mack, Tyler Johnson, Damo Lee, Tone Tolliver, Rashawn Holmes, Ilyasova, Reginald Jackson, Isaiah Taylor, DeJounte Murray, Rajon Rondo, KCP, The Baptist, Julius Randle, the future MVP, Kyle Kuzma, Drew Holiday, Ben Simmons, and Andre Drummond. If you are listening and still listen to this podcast, congratulations. Go and leave a 5-star rating on iTunes. It's a great way of helping this podcast, actually Apple Podcasts, and a review is awesome too. You can also find us Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. And you can leave your comments on YouTube, your thumbs up, and hit that subscribe button. Podcast is going to be continuing all through the playoffs, all through the off-season. Season in reviews, playoff DFS, draft previews, free agency recaps, summer league shit, season previews. You know the drill by now. If you do want to support this podcast on Patreon, go to patreon.com/redrock_bball and check out the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network at Locked On NBA Net and on the internet at lockedonsports.com. We are done here, guys. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Marcus Morris.